You're watching the Hong Kong Racing Show, a big show coming up as we count down the days now until our superstar Ka Ying Rising lines up in the world's richest race on turf, the Everest in Sydney. His barrier trial earlier this week has the internet in an absolute frenzy. We'll hear what David Hayes, his trainer, and jockey Zac Purton had to say shortly. Our special guest this week was one of the first in the world to identify Ka Ying Rising as the next superstar. He did that on this very show 13 months ago. I'm talking about Sky Sports presenter Tim Carroll over in the UK, who is just a few minutes away from joining us. Speaking of superstars, though, time to welcome in one of the best photographers in the business and Hong Kong racing superfan, Alex Evers. How are things, Alex?
Doing very well. How about yourself, Brownie? Look, if I'm the president of the Golden 60 fan club, Tim Carroll is the Ka Ying Rising president right there. He's been on this horse since before he even touched Sha Tin. It seems like he knew about him. I digress, but it's gonna be fun to talk to Tim and see what he says and see what he thinks about that trial, because everyone seems to have an opinion, Brownie.
Yeah,
I know I do. I know you do. But it's good to see the internet talking about horse racing for positive reasons, right? It's only positive, and maybe some people are kind of pushing the market up to get a bit of a better price. I don't know if going from 1.5 to 1.7 is a better price on that horse, but we will see.
Yeah, that's right. If nothing else, it's got everybody talking, and it just adds to the publicity. And I think it's just making the whole world of international racing even smaller, isn't it? Because everybody is interested in this horse. So it's just fantastic. We're going to have a look at his barrier trial and hear from David Hayes and Zac Purton very shortly. But Alex, have you got any other news before we do that?
Yeah, we got some highlights from the Hong Kong racing there from Wednesday night. We have two milestones. We got Derek Lung getting his 500th win aboard Regal Gym, and Angus knocks up 100 wins on Parents' Love for his mentor, his stable rider there, Tony Cruz. So good to see the local guys hitting some career milestones, but all eyes are on the big horse there, Ka Ying Rising over in at the Everest.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, okay, tell me, what did you think of the trial before we have a look at it?
I mean, to me, it was a perfect trial. Like, he's not going out there to win. They're not burning him up. They're getting him a look over the track. He's getting a feel for the ground. You don't have to go brain these horses. As Brownie would say, you don't have to donkey lick them in a trial. You're not getting paid for morning glory. You get paid for the afternoons. So, to me, perfect trial, and let people have a dissenting opinion about it. We'll see what happens on the track out there on the 18th.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we're going to bring Tim in very shortly. But first, before we do that, Tim Carroll I'm talking about, here is Ka Ying Rising's barrier trial from earlier in the week in its entirety. It's over the 1,000 meters. He'll go an extra 200 meters in the Everest next weekend. So that's about 5 furlongs he ran on Tuesday morning. He breaks from the extreme outpost in those familiar colors. We'll get the reactions of trainer David Hayes and jockey Purton straight after the trial.
Ka Ying Rising in front. He's staying well off the fence, though, as Overpass goes through to join him. Length and a half to Linebacker, travelling strongly. Further back to Jolly Star, Mr. Brightside Fangirl. And Angel Capital, who is keen early, is back last of all. So into the straight now. It's Overpass in front from Ka Ying Rising, just cruising up on the outside. Zac Purton sitting pretty quietly. Pass really pushing out Overpass. Linebacker trailing well on the inside. 3 across the track. Overpass still in front. Ka Ying Rising. Zac hasn't really let it go. Linebacker's pushing through on the inside and will beat the pair of them.
It's been 6 weeks between drinks for him, so he really needed a dress rehearsal. He's a bit fresh in the pre-parade. But there were a couple of horses racing pretty hard on his inside, and I think Zac didn't get involved, which was nice. And he had a good blow. He's about 20 pounds above his goal weight. Travelling, that's excellent, and that'll trim down, and that was the idea for today.
Certainly feeling the moment a little bit, and then carrying the extra condition compared to his racing weight on the softer ground. He obviously felt it a little bit, but he's going to tighten up from that and improve, which is what we want.
I think that was a bit typical of Ka Ying today. He'll be better on race day, but he'll have to be, because it's going to be 50,000 people here. He'll have an easy few days, and then on Monday he'll have his final gallop at Canterbury. And that's sort of his normal routine, and I think that it will bring him on. And it must be noted, Zac is often very pessimistic.
No, well, I'm standing next to the eternal optimist, so... Well, he's going to need to beat his best. The Australian sprinters are world class, they're the best in the world, and we've had to travel down here to try and take them on a track that is probably not really to our preference. At Sha Tin, the track's a lot firmer and a lot faster, and as we've seen today, it was a bit softer, which he's not used to. But, you know, that's a challenge that we wanted to take, and we look forward to it.
Some very interesting insights there from trainer David Hayes and jockey Zac Purton as we welcome in our special guest for the week, Sky Sports racing presenter and Hong Kong racing expert, Tim Carroll. How are things, Tim?
Yeah, good, Brownie. How are you, mate? Long time no talk.
I know. It's been a while, but we're looking forward to seeing you hopefully in a few weeks' time, International Week. We're only a couple of months away now, aren't we? So that'll be good. Now, Tim, before we dissect Ka Ying Rising's trial, and just as importantly, the reaction to it, I want to play a clip from when you joined us on this very show 13 months ago, way back in September 2024. Listen to this.
It's one of the best first up performances I've seen from a young horse over there. Look, I'm going to go as I'll go out on a limb. I think this horse is going to be the next superstar of Hong Kong racing. I truly believe that.
There he is, folks. Tim Carroll, one of the first in the world to declare Ka Ying Rising as the next Hong Kong superstar. The rest of the world, 1 year later, has finally caught up. Tim, has Ka Ying Rising exceeded even your expectations since then?
Good question, Brownie. I'd say no, even though he's gone right to the top. But I kind of expected that. I didn't want to say it at the time, but everything we were seeing, it just reminded me so much of Black Caviar, and she's the best sprinter that I've ever seen. I remember the race you're talking about. He was first up last campaign, and I keep a fairly large database, and I knew it was a great performance. I tipped him up that day. I was really happy because he went off at 2:30. You wouldn't believe it on the Hong Kong toe. I thought he'd go off well into the red. But anyway, look, I punched in the numbers into the database, and I won't say exactly what I thought at the time, but it was along the lines of, golly gosh, this is pretty impressive. I think this horse might be a bit of a freak. Even allowing for the fact that he was still a relatively lightly raced horse, and you knew there was a lot more to come. So whilst he's now, I think, rated 135 with time form, and he's gone on to prove to be the best horse in the world according to that time form ratings. And by God, didn't I cop a little bit of flack for that online when I said it when he was rated about, I think at the time he was rated somewhere around about 119, and I copped it from over here. I copped it from the Australians, but yeah, look, I'm going to be a little bit smug. I'm not overly shocked that he's going to do what he's going to do, and I think he'll get better too. I honestly believe that, but yeah, there is a bit of satisfaction there.
Yeah, of course. And you're right. I think he can still improve. We've discussed that on the show over the last few weeks, right? He's still
he's getting bigger. He's getting bigger, Brownie, literally, as we heard from the trial, but he is literally getting bigger and stronger. That's a fact.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Let's talk about the trial then. Tim, what was your reaction to it? And just as importantly, your reaction to everyone else's reaction.
And there was a lot of reaction. I thought it was a very good trial. I think basically he did what they were expecting. I think a lot of people weren't overly impressed, but I don't know. He jumped out. He showed plenty of speed from an outside gate. He sat up on the pace. I've got someone online telling me, "Oh, Purton was rowing him along and all this," and I'm thinking, "Gee, you weren't watching the same trial that I was watching." He didn't ask him to do a lot. Let me explain to you something about this horse. The difference between him and Black Caviar is the obvious one. He's a boy and she was a girl. The second one is that he can get a little bit on toe in the paddock and before he goes out onto the track. Once he gets onto the track, he's all professional. But the similarities are firstly the ability, but secondly, both have a lot of speed, the ability to a high cruising speed and the ability to kick off that speed. But here's a big weapon that he's got that she had, and it's not something you necessarily have in all sprinters. You can ride him on a piece of cotton. He'll go wherever you put him, and that horse won't do any more than what you ask him to do. He won't go until you ask him to go. And people sit there saying, "Oh, he had a couple of horses inside him, and they aren't well beaters, rah, rah, rah," and he never went by. He's not a typical sort of coiled sprinter that's always taking a tug and wants to take off at the rider. He won't go until the rider asks him to, until Purton asks him to. Now, how much Purton had underneath him in the trial, I'm going to guess he had a hell of a lot from what I've seen in the past. But I wouldn't worry too much about the fact that, Zac wasn't bouncing off his backside trying to hold on to him. He's not that style of horse. So I thought it was a very good trial. I think he needed it. I think Connections kind of confirmed that. And I did watch a little bit of footage online. Someone, on an iPhone or something, grabbed him coming back, and he was having a decent blow, but that don't worry me at all. The reaction to the reaction sort of got me a little bit. People saying the horse isn't fit and this sort of thing. And the first thing I've got to say is, I reckon that's pretty insulting if you're a bloke called David Hayes. Now, David, who obviously is the son, as you guys will know, Colin Hayes, one of the big three, along with Tommy Smith and Bart Cummings from Australia. David's got an incredible pedigree. He's won championships in Australia, Hong Kong. He's had Group 1 winners. Goodness, I couldn't even tell you how many. He's trained the winner of a Japan Cup. Do you really think that David Hayes is going to take his superstar sprinter down to Australia and not have him absolutely spot on for the world's richest turf race? Now, come on. The other thing I would say, and this is putting my horseman's hat on, all right, if he was a 1.5 mile horse that hadn't had a start for a while and he was blowing like that, a week and a half out after a fairly soft trial, I might be a bit concerned. But with sprinters, it doesn't take long to get them right. Just a couple of gallops and bang, they're right there. And if I could just finish off by saying, people are making a big thing about David saying he's 20 pounds heavier. 20 pounds is nothing. I'd be more concerned if he lost weight, because now we know he's travelled over there okay, and I can only assume he's eaten pretty well too, which is always a good sign. So to be honest with you, I thought it was a really good trial. I got no concerns about him being fit on race day. I'd be more concerned if the rain came, if the heavens opened up and it was a heavy track, because we haven't seen him on that. And my other concern would be, look, we get big crowds, as you boys know, at Sha Tin, but they're sort of fairly quiet until the end of a race when it's all done and dusted. Whereas in Australia, you get music playing, you get people making a lot of noise before the race. And the other thing I've got to say, and I love Randwick and I love the Australian Turf Club and all the people down there, but when they did the rebuild a few years ago, they made the paddock too small. It's a small paddock, the people are on top, there's a lot of noise. I don't know what David's got planned, but I'd be taking him out into that as late as I possibly can, because as soon as he leaves that, as you guys know, they go through the tunnel. Not many people in there, only officials. So I think he'll be all right in there. And not long after that, he's basically bang onto the track. And Zac always says, once he gets on the track, he's fine. It's the build-up beforehand. So fitness-wise, no worries. Hopefully we get decent ground. And hopefully the loud crowd doesn't worry him.
Yeah, that's right. And they'll be singing Sweet Caroline as well. All 100,000 of them as Ka Ying Rising goes out into the track. But I mean, one of the key points about him going to Randwick for that trial last week was not just to have that hit out in effectively a simulated race. Barrier trials we of course don't have here in North America, but it was to see Randwick and to see the paddock, the theatre of the horse, and get familiar with his surroundings, because as we know, he's only ever raced at Sha Tin. That's been his only race course. So to get that familiarity, I think has been very important, and interesting to touch on the weight there as well. He lost, if the scales were correct, David Hayes will say he lost 20 pounds on the trip from Hong Kong to Sydney. So the fact that he's now 20 pounds heavier than he was at his last start, that means he's probably put on 40 pounds, which means he's eating well, he's healthy, and he's having a good time. So, I mean, I think that's all a positive sign, certainly not a negative.
I totally agree. And I think we need to put it into context for viewers as well, because probably a lot of people out there thinking 20, 30, 40 pounds, that's a lot. I mean, that's you and me sitting on the couch eating burgers and knocking back half a carton every night for 6 months straight. With horses, it's a little bit different. If you have a look at his career over there in Hong Kong, the disparity in his weight, his winning weight is 75 pounds. And if you have a look even more recently, when he won on his final run of last season in the Chairman's, he was 1,115 pounds. Then when he ran first up this season, okay, we're talking 4 months, just over 4 months later, 1,153. He was nearly 40 pounds heavier. Now, despite being nearly 40 pounds heavier, he came out, and according to Timeform, he put a 135 on the board, which, as we know, is the highest rating of any horse, turf or dirt, anywhere in the world this year. So I think you just got to put it all into context. I think it's fairly evident too when you sort of gauge his weight, even though he might drop a little bit after his next couple of runs. But I think he's about to come into his physical best. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if this horse got fairly close to 1,200 pound at some stage, you know, in his career. But the weight thing, like I say, it's not unusual for horses' weights to yo-yo a little bit. Long as, you know, if he came out and he was 100 pound heavier, then I go, whoa, hang on, something ain't right here. But I wouldn't read too much into it, and just just to finally get back to, you got to have faith in connections. I think they know what they're doing. I know they're sort of saying he needed that, which they probably did, but let's not forget he's a 1-2 favourite for the richest turf race in the world, a $20 million race, 8-1 the field. Other than that, there is a lot of pressure on these guys. It could just be, and they're very honest, they're really good. I like David, I like Zac, they're always good to meet him, but they're probably just trying to pour a little bit of water on the fire as well.
Tim, if you can remember, how much did he get paid for that trial out there on Tuesday morning? It wasn't 20 million, was it?
It was a lot. He drew in a lot. There was over 1,000 people there, which,
wow.
You know, this isn't Hong Kong. You wouldn't really expect 1,000 people to turn up for a trial in Australia. So the one thing you've got to say, we've had all this reaction on top of reaction, but isn't it great for the industry?
Oh, yeah. 100%. And all of the major news networks, not just in Sydney, but Melbourne, Adelaide, and all that kind of stuff, their sports bulletins were leading with Ka Ying Rising. Can you believe that? Like, from a US perspective, that would just be unheard of, to have that in your nightly national news. And if I think it's just added a little bit of extra spice, isn't it? They were able to latch onto a lead, like rising doubts, I think was one of the headlines on Channel 10, my old network down there in Melbourne, Katie Price's story. So it was exciting stuff. And it's just, it's added a little bit more fuel to the fire, the interest that was already there. Another one of the things that Zac Purton was joking about, that the people were heading out there for at Randwick on Tuesday morning, Tim, wasn't just to see Ka Ying Rising, but apparently also for the free bacon and egg rolls, I heard. Now, you would have put away a few bacon and egg rolls in your time, I'm sure. What makes a really good bacon and egg roll, Tim?
Oh, gee, to be honest with you, I'm more bacon and eggs. So long as you pile it with bacon and not too much sauce. I'm not a great. I'd like tomato sauce on your sausage sandwich or the barbecue, or if it's really rubbish steak, I get that. But on a good bacon and egg roll, you don't need a lot on it. Just a bit of butter, a lot of bacon, a little bit of egg.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. You're into that brown sauce, aren't you, in the UK? Is that HP or something like that?
Yeah, they like the HP sauce over here, but they've got some funny odd taste. I mean, the one thing that gets me, mate, I love my seafood, but you can't walk into a takeaway corner shop here. Everything is battered. If you try to get a grilled piece of fish or even crumb, it's not impossible. They just batter the living daylights out of everything.
Yeah, Mars bars, Snickers. I remember it. Wild. So as you mentioned, the latest odds, Ka Ying Rising, there is a little 1.7 out there I've seen, a slight drift from Tuesday from 1.5, and then it's about 6 or 7 to 1 the field from there. Jolly Star, Braza, Jimmy Star, Lady Shenandoah, who Glyn Schofield was on the show a few weeks ago and said Lady Shenandoah could be the smoky that could put up a little bit of a fight. But general consensus here, team, is nothing to worry about from Tuesday. The horse is lengths ahead. I think we're all pretty confident. Of course, there were some excuses, a little bit of a wetter track there, first time at Randwick, needed the hit out, but I think we're all onwards and upwards till Saturday week, right? And just wins, yeah?
Yeah, I think so, Brownie. Look, I wouldn't want a heavy track. I'm not saying he wouldn't go on it. He was very good on his one go on yielding in the chairman's, but you wouldn't want a heavy track simply because you haven't seen him on. When you look at his pedigree, actually, there's a fair bit of hope that he'd actually go on it. Yeah. But you know, we know what he does on a good track, and I think that's what the connections would want. But look, that aside, and provided he behaves himself in the paddock, to me, it's a little bit like when Nature Strip came over here for the King's Stand. I said this on air. It's a really simple equation. This horse, Nature Strip, is so much better than anything else in this race. If he runs the form or close to form, he'll win. And to me, it's exactly the same equation with Ka Ying Rising. As good as those Australian sprinters are, and we know they are very good, this fellow's better.
Any last thoughts, Alex?
What's the who do you think is the biggest challenge, and what's the lowest price you would take
On a good track?
Yeah, on a good track.
Well,
Assuming
to be
it's
fair, I've already got 9-2. I jumped in early. This is when they started talking about the IA. So at the moment, I wouldn't take under 9-2. But to be honest with you, I think if it's a good track, and let's say he draws A-OK, although, mind you, he's had plenty of high draws in Hong Kong and overcome those, and there's a lot of speed in those races in Hong Kong. I think he's, because it's unfamiliar surroundings, if this race with the same field was running in Hong Kong, he's 105. In Australia, he's probably 150, 160 on decent ground.
There you go. Oh, 9-2. 550 for him. He's just sitting back smoking the Cuban heading into next Saturday. God, I'd love a little piece of that ticket. All right, Tim's going to stick around with us to give us a couple of his thoughts and selections for Sha Tin this weekend. But first, our international highlight of the week, thanks to our friends over at World Pool. And we're going to keep the Aussie theme going here, except this time we're in France, where Asfoora became the first Australian-trained horse to win a Group 1 in France when taking out the Arbe at Longchamp last weekend. Tim, a horse you would have seen plenty of in the UK as well. And this really has been one of those kind of fairy tale racing stories, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been incredible. Can I tell you a funny story when she came over last year?
Go
I
for it.
was asked to give my opinion on her in the King's Stand. Now, in my defence at the time, the weather forecasters, who got it very wrong, said there was going to be plenty of rain. And I said, oh, I've got to be taken wrong. There's no way she's getting up that hill on a wet track. Well, lo and behold, the rain did come. She got up the hill and won the race, and didn't I get potted? And probably fair enough too. But yeah, it's a wonderful story. It's a story about, I suppose you would say, they persevered, haven't they? They came over last year. They gave her some runs. They came over this year. She wasn't fully fit. She ran well enough in defeat first time out. Went around the King's Stand, etc. I think it got to the point where people were starting to think that she might need to be retired, including the connections. But look, if you listen to the trainer, he still had a lot of faith. So did the lady that looks after her. And then, of course, she comes out and wins the Nunthorpe. And it's like, wow, here we go. And then she went over to Ireland. That didn't work out for her. But, you know, again, fair play to them. They rolled the dice. Then they take her to France and she wins the Abbaye. So she's now the only Australian sprinter to win multiple Group 1s over here. And I'll stand corrected. I think that she's won more Group 1s than any Australian trained horse over here. She would have had to have, because they've all come over and won one race. But apart from So You Think, who won 5 Group 1s, but all of those were trained by Aidan O'Brien over here, I think she's won more Group 1s than any, not just Australian trained horse, but any horse that was formerly trained in Australia, except for So You Think. I'm doing that off the top of my head, but I think that would be the case. So, you know, to Mr. Dwyer and all the connections, fair play to them. They've had a ball, and they've put in the hours, they've put in the time, they've taken their chances, and now they're reaping the dividends.
Yeah, they had a good old-fashioned Aussie crack, and it has, reaped the rewards. So congratulations to them, and it was a great ride from Oisin Murphy as well. Unfortunately, don't think we'll see Asfoora at Del Mar in a few weeks for the Breeders' Cup World Championships. That would have been fantastic, but maybe another time. All right, time for us now to take a look at Sha Tin this weekend. And the feature race on the 10 race card at Sha Tin this weekend is race 9, the Shingmong Handicap. It's a class 2 over the 1200 metres. That's about 6 furlongs. Going through the field, number 1, Ladies' Choice, is a consistent type who will likely push forward from post 4. Number 2, Tomodachi Kokoro, coming off a win over the course and distance. 5, Dancing Code. It's going to be better for one run off the layoff. 7, Master of My Universe. Purton rides, the winner of 4 from 10 last campaign, and has had a couple of trials leading into this. Over the page, 9, Midwinter Wind. Still looking to recapture the form he displayed in that very impressive Hong Kong debut last season. Speed map does show Ladies' Choice and also Baby Crystal taking up the running. Tim, we always follow your tips very closely here. We put them out on the Hong Kong Racing North America social channels. So let's hear it here first. Who do you like in this race?
Oh, I'm going to side with Dancing Code. I think he's one of the better bets on the card. I really like him in this spot. To be fair, he was a couple of lengths behind Tomodachi Kokoro last time out, but he meets him because they put the £5 claim on, and because Tomodachi Kokoro was so impressive. he has shot up 10 pounds here. He's been absolutely lumped for that first up win. And he has drawn high as well. He's drawn out in 11. So I think Dancing Code, now that he's on 14-pound better terms, I think he can certainly turn the form around. The other thing is Dancing Code that day, he had to go from the front. And he normally is a pacey type anyway. But if you have a look at his last couple of wins, he's done that when he's sat in behind the leaders. And I think that's exactly how this will pan out here for him, because there's a couple of speedy types. So he won't have to do the donkey work on the front. He'll be fitter for the first up run. The race that looks the best recent form race for this is the race he was second in last time out, and he's 14-pound better off with the winner, and the winner now has got a high draw to contend with. So yeah, I'm going to side with Dancing Code here.
Dancing Code for Tim. What about you, Alex? Got a selection in this race?
Yeah, I really like Dancing Code too, but I want to be a little bit different here. And I'm kind of going to look at Sky Trust, another one of the Founds runners, improving type, and he's run well second up. But I do like Dancing Code. And last time out, Dancing Code, the way that race shaped up, he went a little too quick, a little early, and Tomodachi Kakaro just got the dream run of the trip. It should be flipped this time. So I love what Tim's talking about there, and just gonna be a matter of what kind of price you get. But Ellis has ridden that horse very well too over his last few runs.
Yeah, so Dancing Code, I'm pretty keen on Dancing Code in the race as well. So it's a clean sweep. Master of My Universe, number 7 as well. I think it's probably the biggest danger. Had a couple of little sneaky trials heading into this, and no doubt will be, I think, ready to roll, and I think a good season ahead as well after 4 from 10 last campaign. So it's 5 and 7 for me. Best bets. I had a little look through before we recorded this on a Thursday North American time. I think I can start the card with the winner, race 1, number 1, Sky Song. Speaking of Ellis Wong, first time in class 5 in a while, so he's on the class drop. Last time he was in class 5, he actually won as well. So Ellis Wong jumps on for a bit of weight relief, drawn well. And I also don't mind race 8, number 6, Mr. Energia, another one for Zac Purton. Tim, have you got any best bets on this card for us that you can share?
Well, I'll tell you what, we're either both going to be eating lobster or we're both going to be eating Vegemite on toast, because I like both of them as well. This Energia probably is going to be, along with Dancing Code, my best bet on the card. He goes on the dirt. He recorded 3 wins last season. 2 of them were on this dirt track, and he ran really well in defeat first up. He finished in behind Packing Bowl, and Packing Bowl's a little bit of a gun on this track. I think he'll be tough to beat here. Zac Purton takes the ride, so he's not going to be overly big in the market. But it's worth noting Zac's only ridden him twice since December of last year, and he's been both of those were for both times he won. So he's got a pretty good record. And Zac knows when to jump on him. I think he'll take plenty of beating there, and I think that the race will map very nicely for him as well.
Great. Anything for you, Alex?
No, I like it. I have zero accountability. I can just jump on your horses, and if they don't run well, I can blame somebody else for my bad picks. I love it.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you both to you for joining us. We've got an exciting, 7 or 8 days ahead as we build towards the Everest. Even more exciting if you're holding a ticket for Ka Ying Rising at the succulent odds of 9-2 like Tim Carroll is. So very exciting times, and no doubt we'll have the latest news and everything coming up. And Tim, we might have to get you back on as we get closer to the Breeders' Cup as well to talk about a few UK contenders heading towards the Breeders' Cup. Really excited to see Rebels Romance tackle a 3rd Breeders' Cup turf as well. That's going to be really exciting. Then maybe get off to Hong Kong for the International Week. So we'll get you back on to talk some Breeders' Cup soon.
Yeah, look forward to it. One of my favourite meetings on the calendar.
Can we get you over to Del Mar?
I'm in Melbourne for the Melbourne Cup this year, and I don't have to use a private jet. If I did, I'd probably give that a crack. But I'm going to have to get to the Breeders'. I'm going to try to get there when it's at Keeneland, because I have never been to a race meeting at Keeneland. I've been out there to the track and looked around, but I haven't been to a race meeting.
So that'll be next year. I was just in Keeneland last weekend, actually doing some filming for the Breeders' Cup for next year. So the place looked sensational, so I can't wait. You could have come to Del Mar and then just hitched a ride with Johnny Velasquez on his private jet. So he'll be riding at Del Mar on Saturday afternoon. He's got to get to the Melbourne Cup, but you probably want to go to Derby Day too, don't you?
Have a word for me, but yeah, I am going to Derby Day as well.
All right, mate. Well, it's great to see you. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Alex. Don't forget to check out the Hong Kong Jockey Club website for all things Hong Kong racing. Also, check out the Sky Racing World website for a lot of great information about Hong Kong racing, including picks and analysis, and you can also download free PPs in their Handicappers Corner. That's skyracingworld.com/handicapper, handicapper/corner. That's a bit of a mouthful, but we'll put a little graphic up on screen for you. Thanks, boys. Great to see you both. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week on the Hong Kong Racing Show.